after Iowa defeats Troy 38-21 in Kinnick Stadium this afternoon. Iowa post game with Coach Don Patterson. Coach Don Patterson coming up here. What turned out to be a very interesting game. Again, just like Illinois State, maybe more so this week, a tale of two halves. I can't express the frustration that people were feeling on Twitter, Instagram, all the social medias at halftime of this game. Iowa was down 14-10, had given up a just completely uncharacteristic punt return, a long bomb touchdown given up by TJ Hall, and another offensive output that looked subpar. 10 points against Troy is nothing to be particularly proud of, but the Hawkeyes did manage to get it going in the second half. They did score 28 points in the second half, won the second half 28-7 to pull away from Troy 38-21. We'll get to a couple takeaways from the game as we are late. I do want to add in very quickly the legend himself, Coach Don Patterson. How are we doing tonight, Coach?
Kyle, we're doing okay.
Yeah.
Could be better, but could be a lot worse.
I agree. I think there were some fears at halftime that it was going to be a lot worse than it turned out to be. You were in Kinnick Stadium today. I'm assuming would have heard some of the boos and some of the frustration at halftime, and then saw how the Hawkeyes were able to flip the script in the second half. What did you see? What did you feel in Kinnick Stadium this afternoon as Iowa took on Troy?
Well, when there was 1 minute left in the first half, I was anxious to see what we were going to do with that last 60 seconds because I knew it might go either way. And sure enough, we decided to not take any chances at all and end the half as quickly as we could by running a couple of run plays. And I understand the fans were upset. What it told me, though, Kurt knew we were down by 4. He wanted to be sure we didn't do anything stupid. And he was confident we could overcome a one-score lead. Let's face it, if we did turn the ball over in that last minute, even if they, well, that's worst case scenario, even if they end up with a touchdown, we'd be down 11, but of course that's 2 scores, and we're not exactly an offensive juggernaut right now, so 2 scores sounds maybe twice as difficult to overcome as 1 score, I do believe. So it didn't shock me that we sat on the ball. What I would like to have seen would be for us to simply spread the defense out and run a really safe play, such as a draw play maybe, something that was ultra safe, and see what happened. Maybe we bust it for 30 yards, and I was quickly doing the math. We were on the 25, of course, after the ball went in the end zone in the kick. So 40 yards would have put us on their 35, which would have allowed us to kick a 53-yard field goal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't doubt that Matt would have been able to get the ball through there. So we were 40 yards away with 60 seconds. That's doable. Let's face it, if we force them to spread out and defend our formations, there are a lot of good teams to throw the ball, at least on a short and intermediate basis, and to move the ball down the field. Negatively, we only had 1 timeout left, and that brings up a good point. Coach Fry the defense would jokingly say, we can't ever take a timeout because we'll get the wrath of Coach Fry if we do. But you know where Coach is coming from. He wants those 3 timeouts available at the end of the half in case we need them to generate a 2-minute drive and have the benefit of more than just 1 timeout. So we had 1 timeout only, and we hadn't exactly moved the ball up and down the field with any rapidity through the air. So let's face it, at that point, any run play that we called would have a chance to bust simply because we've had more explosive plays this year by run than by pass. So the only issue I had with it, if we're going to run the ball, let's at least present as if we're going to throw it and then run it, because I think that enhances our chances of getting a chunk play out of the running game.
Another note I had from that first half as well, Iowa got down to the 15-yard line when it was 0-0, had 3rd and short, failed to convert, had 4th and short, failed to convert. What do you think about that sequence, the play calling, and the decision to go for it on 4th down?
Well, I can't honestly remember what we did on 3rd. Was it actually 3rd and 1?
It was 3rd and 2 or 3, I think, and then there was
a yard or 2.
Yeah.
And we were, I think, pretty much a legitimate yard short, weren't we? It wasn't just inches.
Yeah, it wasn't inches. It was definitely a full yard.
Well, I don't know what the stat is right off the top of my head, but in the Big Ten, if you score the first points, you do win way more than 50% of the time. I don't know what it is, but probably at least 65%, I would think. And obviously, it doesn't give them a chance for momentum. And then it wouldn't count as a red zone failure. I think we were on maybe the 18 at the time. So that officially what became a red zone failure to kick the ball through the uprights, of course, would give us the satisfaction of knowing we're on the board first. And we didn't come away dry. And of course, anytime you go on fourth down, there's a chance that the defense is going to win. Certainly a good offense wins a lot more than they lose. And that still remains to be seen with our offense. I was encouraged, Kyle, with the way it reminded me a little bit of the Illinois State game. I think over time we kind of warmed down a little bit. Not because it was a little bit warm and humid, because let's face it, they practice in Alabama, and I can promise you they have a lot of warm, humid days in August, September down there.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, we just warmed down. We were creasing them for good yardage, especially as the game went on. We ran okay in the first half. We ran even better in the second half. I hope that can continue for us. That'll be the question. Can we continue to get that done? The tougher tests are up ahead, of course, starting with Minnesota.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all right now it starts and ends with number 2. Caleb Johnson is once again, I sound like a broken record. He's our RTI Threads player of the game again. Last week he had 25 carries for $187 and then 2 touchdowns. And this week he's got 25 carries, 173 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He is up to 61 carries by my math. 61 carries, 479 yards, and 6 touchdowns on the season, which already passes up his 463 yards from last season and 117 carries. And he's almost halfway to 1,000 yards, over halfway to catching LaShawn Williams, who finished at 821 yards last year and was Iowa's leading rusher. So just another sterling game from Caleb Johnson, who just continues to separate himself. I thought another note, unfortunately, going forward was the injury to Kamari Moulton. Looked like he got a little bit banged up. And also LaShawn Williams, like I mentioned, he was our leading rusher last year. And another day today that he gets 4 touches for 9 yards. Would love to see him get a little bit more involved. I know he's probably battling that injury still that he suffered in camp, but would be great to see him get going as well. Obviously, the big takeaway, I think, besides Caleb Johnson in this game was, man, big plays, 2 huge plays over the top, specifically over TJ Hall, and of extremely uncharacteristic long punt return touchdown on special teams that I thought was, it was a low kick, but it was also probably, to be fair, it was also poorly covered.
Correct.
Talk about those plays, what you saw specifically from TJ Hall and that punt return, those 3 plays, and what you think has caused Iowa to be susceptible to those so far this season.
Well, one of the touchdowns over TJ was absolutely his fault. The other one, I'm not sure, Kyle. I'll tell you what, I need to look at the TV version to study what we were playing. I think we were playing half coverage on that second touchdown. And if it's half coverage, in theory, of course, you got 2 deep safeties and they're responsible for any deep ball. But I think it was a wheel route. I think it was an inside receiver down the boundary again, wasn't it? I think. Yeah. You saw the game on TV, right? So you had a chance to observe more than once. Yeah. So if it's 2-man, I doubt that it was 2-man because I'm pretty sure that TJ was lined up on the outside receiver, and the outside receiver ran a post route. So as he released down the field, I believe what happened, TJ cushioned off the line of scrimmage, probably was lined up no deeper than 5 yards. Maybe he leveled off at 10 yards or so. And I don't know how they're taught right now. Maybe if there's a wheel route coming, it's automatic that you latch onto the wheel route. I don't know that. Some people would teach it that way. Other people would not. So, and I'm not sure who's at fault. Um, Only the coach knows for sure. I did look specifically at what happened when TJ got to the bench, and I didn't see any suggestion that he'd screwed up based on the interaction with Coach Ferris. And then I do recall this. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was right back out there after that second touchdown.
He was, yeah, and that obviously is a marked difference from what happened to Xavier Wampa the previous week when he got burned. He was immediately pulled, so I would assume that's a message as to who the blame was on that play.
Yeah, that suggests that maybe that second one was not TJ's fault. Yeah. I don't know for sure. It's guesswork on my part because I'm just sitting out in the crowd like everyone else. But that's at least how I saw it. Getting back to the punt return, I made the comment at the time to people around me. I said, he may be wearing number 9, but he's not Tory Taylor, not yet. And frankly, it'd be unfair to expect him to be Tory Taylor anytime soon. The ball didn't have a lot of hang. Incidentally, there were other times when he had 50-yard punts on the fly with good hang time. Yeah. I didn't time them, of course. I didn't have a stopwatch, but I know what good hang time looks like because I had a future NFL punter on my team at Western Illinois by the name of Mike Cyphers, one of the best punters in the NFL for a decade or more, for all those Charger fans that are out there. And not to mention, of course, as a young coach, I had the privilege of watching a guy named Reggie Roby punt. So I've seen 2 of the best punters in the history of college football. Those two are the best. And Tory's certainly right up there with any and all of them. And maybe someday our freshman can be there. He's certainly got that potential. A little inconsistent right now. That particular ball didn't have great hang time. And as you mentioned, doesn't matter if the hang time's poor or not. That doesn't provide you with the opportunity of not being in good coverage. Let's face it, the coverage eliminates all long returns regardless of the hang time. And we simply didn't defend the field. They got outside of us, and it was a race down the boundary, and that was the end of that. So it's good that it happened in a way because it's a wake-up call for that coverage unit. Don't make any assumptions about the other team fair catching or the other team not having an opportunity to return because right now our freshman punter may not give us great hang time. If it doesn't, it's on us to defend regardless of how much time the return man has.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think, as far as Reese Dakin's concerned, he certainly has had some punts over the first 3 games, in my opinion, that look Tory-esque, but like you said, the consistency is just not there. The remarkable thing about Tory was it felt like Tory never made a mistake in all the years that he punted for Iowa. It really, really felt like there wasn't, maybe every punt wasn't down inside the 5, but there were not punts where he put the coverage team in a bad position because of hang time or because of where he placed the ball or anything like that. And there certainly wasn't a regular pattern of kicking it into the back of the end zone, which there seems to be through the first 3 weeks this week. There's just not that touch developed yet, but I think he'll get there.
Let me take you back, Kyle. A week and a half ago, I was in practice in part because I got a call from an old friend of mine that happens to be a scout for the Bears and has been for 40 years. And by his request, I went to practice. He wanted to introduce me to a young scout. I used to be the pro liaison at Iowa many years ago, and I was the one always talking to the pro scouts. Anyway, I know for a fact, because this particular pro scout, who remained nameless, but a veteran scout, I know for a fact that the Bears are very, very pleased to have Tory Taylor. So I'm glad he's off to a good start with the Bears.